The views and opinions expressed are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect that of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Commissioner's Corner, sponsored by the Virgin Islands Department of Education. I am your host, Dr. Dionne Wells-Hedrington, Commissioner for the Department of Education, and you can catch us every Tuesday right here on WTJX Facebook and YouTube pages, as well as VIDE's Facebook and YouTube page, and 93.1 FM at 5:30 p.m. This is an avenue that the department is using to keep our community informed of the latest and the greatest things happening at the Virgin Islands Department of Education. And so I want to begin by, saying a special thanks to God for sparing us during Tropical Storm Ernesto. I say this often that we are blessed here in the Virgin Islands, and we were able to recover very fast from that storm. And it's kind of a test run. So we found some gaps in some things that we need to tighten up so that we can be prepared should we ever have to endure anything like that again. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest for this afternoon. With me today, we have our new Executive Director of the School Bureau of Construction and Maintenance. He is going to be working very closely with me and my team as we work to make sure that our infrastructures, our learning spaces are safe and conducive for learning. So, Mr. Craig Benjamin, greet the community.
Yes. Good evening, to the entire community, both St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix. I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to come before you all and introduce myself for the second time. It was a rough start, but hey, I'm built for it. And I've been working closely with the commissioner. I'm her eyes and ears out here, and God knows she needs several sets of eyes and ears out here to make an observation of what's going on and to be able to execute a plan to get these errors corrected, and
Awesome.
That will be done.
And you know what? You said something that's very important to stress to the community, because in my last Senate hearing, there were some questions about how is the Bureau going to work, and do you think that you will have a good relationship with the new executive director, being that he or she doesn't report to you? And I have to say this with confidence and to assure the community that we have started off with a wonderful relationship.
Right. Right.
We both report to Governor Bryan.
Exactly.
And we both understand the mission that you have to undertake with my support and the rest of the team. And so I don't foresee any challenges in that arena. What I will tell you, though, it's a breath of fresh air for me. Managing facilities has been very challenging.
I know it is.
Especially because of the conditions of our schools. And I've said it on numerous platforms that I reviewed an assessment that was done by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers back in 2015 when they told us that, we had in excess of $22 million in deferred maintenance. Yes. And so we're already starting from a deficit and trying to ensure that we keep our buildings alive. So talk about a little bit about what you have seen thus far. People are excited to see what new things you're going to bring to the table. So talk about what you have seen in your travel in all three islands and visited our respective sites.
Yes. So Let me put it this way. Day one, I got out there. I arrived in the territory 1 day before, and that on day one, I went out, made the necessary assessments of St. Thomas. I was shocked of what I've seen, being that I'm a product of both the private education and public school education, and looking at the structures was a bit heartbreaking, especially in my alma mater, Charlotte Amalie High School. I was taken back, and then as I proceeded to go to the sister islands, St. Croix and then St. John, it was a repeat of the same thing. So it led me to think that, okay, my first strategy would have to be to identify ways of tackling this problem. And one of the common denominators in this entire equation is communication of what's going on in each and every one of our facilities. And that communication breakdown is very problematic. If we don't have the communication to identify each and every space of the facility, we have nothing, because you're going to have, for example, your maintenance guys doing repetitive repairs to an area that is suffering because of a simple leak. And if they don't indicate that that leak was occurring when it initially started, it has resulted in several issues down the line. One of our big issues, as you can see, when you have water in any space and you have this heat and humidity, what do we have? The moisture. Okay? Where is that leak coming from? A lot of times, the individuals don't know that due to energy management of the facilities, no matter whether it's a school or a house, we're trying to save energy with the high costs. We shut off our air conditioning. And what does that do to the building? It makes them sweat. And people ask, how could a building sweat? Well, the materials that the buildings are all made up of are made from water. Water is in every one of those components of those buildings. And as the heat increases, the buildings do perspire. When the buildings perspire, you end up with wet areas. Example, ceiling tiles. Ceiling tiles become moist because the structure above it is perspiring. It drips.
Just like we do.
Just like we do. And what do you have? A wet ceiling tile, if it sits there unattended,
it's the breeding ground.
Exactly. And that doesn't happen just from a simple leak. It could also happen from condensation, which can be caused by your air conditioning system.
Right. So you remember, I don't know if you recall, but in our walks together, when you first came into the territory, I mentioned to you about the challenges that we were having with the modular units.
Right.
And you said something to me that there's no vents.
Right.
Explain to the community what you meant.
I am so glad you're asking about that.
When you said that.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the typical modular facility, modular structure out there that we have in each and every one of our schools, you're going to see that we have these little vents put in place. They are not allowing sufficient air to flow underneath those structures. What is actually needed is the lattice system, which are the X's. A lot of people have them on their houses as decoration, and they are made either of wood or PVC. I would suggest the PVC ones because they are easier to work with and they're more durable than the wooden ones. However, if we had that on the bottom of each one of those structures, it would allow proper air flow to go under each of those structures. When the air is trapped under there with the current system that we have in place, that air collides, that hot air from the earth collides with the cold air from the air conditioning system inside of those units. And they collide at the floor level. The floor level has insulation, number one, then the plyboard form that's on top of the beams that's going across the floor, and then you have your tile or perhaps carpeting. But only one would have carpeting would be something like a library that's in one of those, but we don't have that, any libraries in them right now. But what happens when that cold air collides? It forms condensation in both the wood and the insulation. That insulation absorbs the wetness like a sponge, and it stays there, and it causes the wood for the floor to deteriorate. It breaks down. Wet wood will break down, and then you end up with a soft floor. And to add to that, you get the results of mold or mildew. A lot of them might just have acceptable mold level, but the odor alone will cause you to, think the whole thing is infested with mold and it smells horrible and stuff like that.
What did you see?
Well, the space between the existing louvers, which are designed to vent the undercarriage of the structures, they are only roughly about 1/8 of an inch. And the entire vent itself is about a little more than 12 inches long by maybe 3 to 4 inches high.
So what does that mean to the layman?
Well, the layman would look at it and say, well, hey, we don't have sufficient ventilation going through that area. That's like you squeezing your nose and trying to breathe at the same time. So what happens?
Right. So reality is we have over 100 modulars across this territory that are, filling the gaps that we have in buildings that can be occupied. And so the department is really in a rough place.
Right.
So just like the community, I would want to know what would be a plan that the department can put in place to ensure that these facilities that have already outdone their lives can actually live a little bit more. So what would be that plan?
What I have planned to do is get a contractor, put out an RFP for contractors to give me quotes on increasing the ventilation, and how I want that done. I'm gonna spec it out to require that they use the lattice system all throughout the entire lower portion of these facilities. Once that is done, it would buy us. It hopefully will buy us some time to at least save the floors of these units, because I understood that several other floors are failing as well.
So what about the top? Because we've experienced some issues where the two halves join.
Right.
Any plans for the roofing?
Well, yes. The term busting at the seam, that is happening with all of those units. Those units are tied together, and they have a seam for each roof system. And that seam is, I think that should be about almost 12 inches wide, a 12-inch wide band that's stuck on top of both roofs as they come together to form a seal for the roofing system. It doesn't really interlock, but it's just pushed together, and hopefully somewhere underneath there are bolts that's holding both of those together. But what I've seen, you've seen a gap from underneath when you take out the ceiling tile and you look up in the ceilings, you've seen almost an inch gap. So, and that's when the seams have failed. Most of the seams have failed, and the guys have went up there and patched them. We're going to have to use a stronger material to patch those to make it work. And we just have to continue doing that until, we have the spaces that we need, and we no longer have to utilize these temporary structures.
Right. So I've said it in various forums that, we're doing two things at the same time. We're building new schools, and then we're maintaining the existing facilities.
Right.
So when we talk about the footprint of the Department of Education, our footprint is 40 plus years old.
Right.
The youngest school in the St. Croix district is Educational Complex, Current Technical Education side. And then in the St. Thomas, St. John district is Lockhart, BCB, and Bowski.
Right.
Everything else is way past their life. And so your job is not an easy one, because
Right.
on any given day, you would know what you're waking up to.
Exactly.
I remember busted pipes underneath the ground because the pipes have collapsed, because it's not PVC piping.
Right.
It's actually cast iron piping.
Right,
So,
right.
we know that we have a lot of work to do, but one of the things that I like about your vision forward is I've never heard you say in the couple of months you've been here that we can't get it done.
Right.
So, kudos to you for that. And one of the things that the legislation had said that you, as the executive director, would have to come up with a plan. And so have you thought about, what that plan would look like?
I've already put a plan together.
Okay.
It's being submitted for approval.
Okay.
We're tweaking it as we go. And that plan consists of how I would like the Bureau to be structured. We have to have the key individuals in place. And these key individuals are construction professionals.
Okay.
And they have diverse backgrounds, and they meet the requirement to execute in this type of environment. As you know, this environment is not for the faint at heart.
All right.
You and I know we've been getting texts all through the night. We're responding to texts and emails all through the night, 7 days a week. And as you know, I had my executive team out
All right.
during this storm.
All hands on deck.
Yeah, everybody was out helping out the maintenance department. And why is that? Because we have a shortage in our maintenance department.
Right.
And it will be unacceptable for us to say, well, hey, all these things need to be done, go out and get them done. And we know they're short of staff. So we improvised. We stepped in, we got out there, we put on our boots, who had the boots, and whoever didn't have boots put on sneakers and got out there and did what we could do. And we were out there till the evening. We didn't complain, we didn't whine, we just did it.
Right.
We let the guys know that, hey, we're here to support them. We're not going to just give you orders and if it was an unrealistic order, give you some order to do something and we can't do it ourselves.
All right.
My motto is, hey, if I'm giving you an order to go out and do something, trust and believe I can do that same thing. And I will come out there and assist you.
And I like that because it really shows that you are committed to the work that your team is doing.
Right.
And, we lead, yes, but we also know what it means to be in the trenches. And a lot of times, you've heard it, I've taken a lot of heat for these buildings, as though the commissioner just up and put these dilapidated buildings in place. But, the community has a right to be upset. I'm upset with some of what I've seen, some of what I walked into as well, just in the course of doing assessments in my previous position and realizing that there's so much work that has been done in our facilities that is shoddy work. Because it wasn't properly supervised and nobody checked the contractors. And so even to the way that we deal with contracts, I know is part of your plan because that management piece is critical to ensure that what we're paying for.
Construction management is key.
Right.
If you don't have the construction management, you have what we got in the past.
Right.
And our goal is to do away with what we got in the past, use those as lessons learned, and just execute.
Right.
That's all it takes. This whole thing, if you take a step back and look at what we have to deal with, you stop and scratch your head. That thing isn't hard to do, but it's the the people component. I can't go and say, oh, we found a contractor that will do it for $5, and you know it's a $25 job. There's no way you're gonna get a quality product. You're gonna get exactly what you pay
paid
for.
right.
And the community has to understand and realize that a lot of that has been going on, and in the climate that we're in right now, this climate will break your back. We have projects that are executing. Just as we start to execute the project, the cost has inflated through the roof. And guess what? You know the contractor can't afford to take that hit. So he's going to have to come back to you to ask you to, ask
Change
you for,
order.
Could I get some more money for this project? Because there's no way I'm going to be able to successfully execute this project at the current cost or the cost that we bid it at. And this is a reality in the construction industry.
Right.
You think we have it bad here? Other jurisdictions have the same problems that we're going through. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is the process of which we execute in these projects. I want to know that when I put it out to bid, I get exactly what I asked for. And how do I achieve that? I assign it to this project to a project manager or project managers, a team. And their responsibility is to put their eyes on every aspect of the project. Before the contractor goes on to the second phase of what he's doing, it's going to be, somebody's going to check to see that you are doing it the way it's supposed to be done.
Right. And I think that's the greatest gap that I've seen in the manpower, in the skilled workers within the division, and just having eyes on everything.
You have to.
You have to have eyes on everything, and I think that over the years, for whatever reason, eyes have not been on everything. And I'll give you one case. When we were doing the assessments after the hurricanes, and FEMA was here and we had our consultants walking with us, we went into Building B at Charlotte Amalia High School. And the assessment team took down a drop ceiling that was in the upstairs of Building B. When they took down that drop ceiling, you did not want to see the roof. Structurally unsound. We had to immediately shut the building down. But had that drop ceiling not been moved,
we'll never know.
Nobody was seeing it. So some decisions that were made in the past, at that time they may have thought it was the best thing to do. It really put the department in an even worse predicament because we couldn't see the damages that the building had incurred. So we're battling environmental issues. We're battling the heat.
Yes.
We're battling the WAPA concerns. We're battling the storms. And, just the age of our infrastructure. So it's not an easy feat. So I commend you and the team, the hardworking men and women of the maintenance division, operations division. And I am pleased to know that when the time was needed for everybody to be out, they were out. I was out after the storms. My team was out. It was important that we assess so that we could determine what we needed to do to get schools up and running. So I'm excited to see your plan and that you have already drafted it. That's kudos to you as well. And it's merely just us executing. But I want you to touch on something before we wrap up. One of the biggest cries of the community is the heat. We're going through a heat wave, and why we can't install these ACs in our schools. Can you explain to the community quickly, because we have about 5 more minutes before we wrap up, why can't we just stick an AC into a wall?
AC, air conditioning, that's a tough subject. Hey, but guess what? An air conditioning can be placed in a wall. However, if you don't have the sufficient power to power that air conditioning unit, you're just as good as not having it in the wall. And we are going through that right now.
Yep.
Some of the units that we're actually taking out of certain places and replacing, we come to find out those units are of a different voltage versus the new units. So everything has to be upgraded. And a lot of people don't understand that. Oh, just stick it in and plug it in. No, it doesn't work like that. The voltage is different.
And so when the voltage is not where it should be, what do we have to do?
You got to hire an electrical contractor to come in and, whoa, let me back up. You got to have your analysis done of the electrical system. And that should be done by your electrical engineers, point blank. Have your electrical engineer assess the entire building, because you don't want to go and put in a high voltage in areas where it cannot accommodate it.
Right.
Okay? So it doesn't work like that. You get the proper assessment done by the proper individuals, and then you put together your plan, present your plan, get it approved. Then you come and you install the new electrical system to support the new air conditioning units.
And I was telling him, I'm a former principal, right? And you can't tell me how to run my school. I was one of those.
Yeah.
I need an AC in a room. I'm going to buy the AC for the room, and I'm going to put it in. Yes. And one of the things that we do often is just that, right? Yeah. And because the voltage could accept it doesn't mean it's right, because you don't have the necessary insulation in the room.
That's the next thing.
That's the next problem that we have across the territory.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that every single thing is in place and correct before we even attempt to put AC into places that never had air conditioning before. Agreed?
Agree 100%. However, you're talking about insulation. Everybody needs to know the insulation doesn't stop with the stuff behind the wall. The insulation has to do with your windows, the sealing off of your windows, and your doors.
Right.
You can't just hang a door like I've seen a lot of doors hang and you have an inch of space under the door. You can't have that.
Right.
So all those rooms have to be completely sealed. The paint, everything have to coordinate with the environment you have in there.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that when you're designing air conditioning systems, it all depends on the building orientation, how that air conditioning system is going to work. And what building orientation is where on the site the building has been placed.
Right.
You have the sun that rises in the east and the sun sets in the west. That affects your air conditioning system design on your buildings.
And I'm so happy that you're here, and we don't have enough time, so Mr. Benjamin, you're coming back. But, I'm excited to see the shift that is going to happen in the department with you at the helm. And, I'm committed to working with you to ensure that our spaces are conducive to learning. What's the last thing that you want to say for 1 minute before we wrap up to the community?
Well, I'd like to thank the community for allowing me to come back home.
Right.
And being able to put all the things that I've learned over the past 20-odd years abroad and here, because as you know, I came from WAPA. I was one of WAPA engineering techs, and then I went back off to school and came back again. So I'm thankful to be here and to form this new bureau. I'm working hard to put the dream team together so that you all can see a difference right away, as soon as possible, put it that way. And
we're looking forward. Sure. So community, stay tuned for more updates from the Bureau and Executive Director, Mr. Benjamin. Thank you for joining us on the Commissioner's Corner. See you next Tuesday right here at 5:30 p.m. Have a blessed evening.
The views and opinions expressed are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect that of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.